Did medieval hearts truly ache with a longing so fierce they would turn to forbidden arts? In the murky depths of the Middle Ages, did desperate souls seek to ensnare love, not with sweet words but with potent brews and whispered incantations? Yes, they did. And some of these methods were truly unsettling. Number 1. The Mandrake Root Potion. The mandrake plant was not just any herb in the Middle Ages. It was a legend, a creature of the earth, said to possess near-human qualities. Its root often grew into shapes that resembled a small person with limbs and a body. This striking resemblance fueled centuries of folklore, making it one of the most coveted and feared ingredients in the medieval magical arsenal. For love, the mandrake root was believed to be an unmatched force, capable of stirring a passion so intense it bordered on obsession. The sheer power attributed to the mandrake root meant its harvest was a ritual of profound dread and meticulous care. Medieval texts and common lore warned that the mandrake would shriek with a piercing, deadly cry when it was pulled from the earth. This scream was said to be fatal to anyone who heard it directly. To bypass this terrifying obstacle, cunning and perilous methods were devised. One common practice involved tying a dog to the mandrake root by a cord. The dog would then be lured away with food or perhaps even tormented, forcing it to pull the root free. The dog, rather than the human, would then suffer the lethal shriek, often dropping dead on the spot. The human harvesters, meanwhile, would stuff their ears with wax or other materials to protect themselves from the deadly sound. Other accounts described practitioners drawing a circle around the plant with a sword facing west and speaking specific incantations before attempting the harvest. Time of day or night was also crucial, with some believing the plant's power was strongest when pulled under a full moon, or even more ominously, at midnight. Once harvested, the mandrake root was treated with extreme reverence and caution. Its preparation for a love potion was a delicate and often secretive affair. The root might be dried, then painstakingly ground into a fine powder. This powder was then typically mixed into a liquid meant for the unsuspecting target. Wine was a common vehicle, as its strong taste and odor could mask the presence of the brute ale, or other strong drinks were also used. Sometimes the powdered mandrake might be baked into food, especially bread or cakes, to be consumed by the intended beloved. The goal was always to introduce the powerful essence of the mandrake into the person's body, believing it would compel their heart and mind. The beliefs surrounding the mandrake's effects were deeply rooted in sympathetic magic. The human-like form of the root was thought to transfer its soul or essence to the recipient, bending their will and sparking an irresistible, almost unnatural desire. It was not just about gentle affection. It was about binding someone to you, often against their true inclination. This made the Mandrake Potion a perilous tool, blurring the line between love and coercion. The lore suggested that once under the Mandrake's spell, a person would be consumed by an overwhelming longing for the potion's giver, unable to think of anyone else. Historically, the Mandrake's reputation spanned cultures and centuries. Ancient Greek and Roman texts, like those from Dioscorides and Pliny the Elder, discuss its medicinal, though often dangerous, properties, alongside its magical uses. In the Middle Ages, its presence in herbals and treatises on natural magic was common. For instance, the Herbarius Apulae Platonici, a widely disseminated herbal text from late antiquity, but popular throughout the medieval period, detailed methods for mandrake extraction and its uses, though often with warnings about its potency and danger. Likewise, medieval grimoire collections of magical spells and recipes frequently listed mandrake as a supreme ingredient for various purposes, including love spells and even attempts at necromancy. These texts did not shy away from describing the plant's supposed sentience and its deadly cry. However, the perceived power of the mandrake came with significant, very real risks. The mandrake plant is highly poisonous. It contains tropane alkaloids, including hyoscine, atropine, and scopolamine, which are potent hallucinogens and anticholinergics. Ingesting even a small amount could lead to severe symptoms: extreme hallucinations, delirium, confusion, rapid heart rate, dilated pupils, dry mouth, paralysis, and convulsions. In larger doses, it could cause respiratory failure, coma, and death. Many who attempted to use Mandrake for love potions might have experienced these toxic effects firsthand, leading to illness, madness, or even death, which would only serve to reinforce its reputation as a plant of immense and dangerous power. From a moral and spiritual standpoint in the Middle Ages, the use of Mandrake for love was deeply condemned by the Church. It was unequivocally seen as a form of illicit sorcery, a direct attempt to interfere with God's will, and a person's free will. To force love through such means was considered a grave sin, often associated with demonic pacts and the darker side of magic. Accusations of using Mandrake could lead to severe punishment, including excommunication, imprisonment, or even execution, particularly during times of intense witch hunts, although the most fervent witch hunts came later. The secrecy surrounding the Mandrake's use was therefore immense, as both the act itself and its potential physical consequences were terrifying. Examples of Mandrake lore appear in later literature, but the roots of these tales are firmly in the medieval period. While there are few concrete historical accounts of love potions using Mandrake explicitly working in the desired way, the sheer volume of warnings, prohibitions, and fearful legends surrounding the plant attests to its pervasive presence in the medieval imagination. Plant's human-like shape, its deadly shriek, and its toxic nature combine to make it a symbol of ultimate, often dangerous, magical power. A last resort for those desperate for love, or perhaps for control. The fear and fascination it inspired meant that even the suspicion of its use could cast a shadow of dread over a community. The stories of its supposed magical prowess, often tied to its deadly nature, ensured its place at the top of the list for those seeking the most powerful love magic. Number 2. The Dove's Heart, Elixir. In the intricate tapestry of medieval beliefs, animals were often seen as embodying certain characteristics that could be transferred to humans through consumption or ritual. The dove, a creature revered since ancient times, held a unique and powerful symbolism in the Middle Ages. It represented purity, peace, fidelity, and most profoundly, love. Its gentle cooing, its paired existence with a mate, and its role in Christian iconography as a symbol of the Holy Spirit all contributed to its elevated status. It was this potent symbolism that made the dove, or more specifically its heart, a prized ingredient in medieval love magic. The belief behind the dove's heart, Elixir, was rooted in sympathetic magic. By consuming the heart of a creature symbolic of love and fidelity, the recipient would absorb these very qualities. The hope was to instill an unwavering, intense affection and loyalty in the beloved, binding them to the practitioner with an unbreakable bond. It was a direct attempt to infuse the essence of true, devoted love into another person, making them mirrors of the dove's perceived faithfulness. Preparation of such an elixir was a grim and secretive affair. It began with the acquisition of a dove, often through stealth or trapping. The precise method of dispatching the bird was often detailed in magical texts, sometimes specifying that it should be done quickly or at a particular astrological hour, a sobrade disk. This vital organ, considered the seat of emotions and life itself, was the core of the charm. The heart might then be prepared in various ways. Some recipes called for it to be dried and ground into a powder. This powder would then be mixed into a drink or food, much like other powdered magical ingredients. Wine was a frequent choice, as were strong ales, honey, or even sweet pastries, chosen to disguise the unpleasant taste or texture. Other methods involved cooking the heart, perhaps roasting or boiling it, and then incorporating the cooked heart or its juices into a meal. There are also mentions of it being combined with other ingredients, sometimes blood from the practitioner, or specific herbs known for their amorous properties, such as vervain or rose petals. To further enhance the potion's efficacy, the entire process was performed in secret, often with accompanying incantations or whispered prayers, focusing the intention of binding the desired person to the practitioner. Historically, the use of animal organs in magic was not unique to the Middle Ages. It was a practice with roots in ancient cultures. However, medieval grimoire and folk magic traditions often recorded such recipes. While difficult to find explicit citations which tended to condemn all forms of magic generally, various collections of magical recipes from the period describe the inclusion of animal parts, including the hearts of birds for various purposes. These texts served as a sort of forbidden codebook for those seeking supernatural aid. Practice reflected a worldview where the boundaries between human and animal and between physical and spiritual were fluid. Despite its symbolic purity, the act of preparing and administering a dove's heart elixir carried significant risks and taboos. From a practical standpoint, consuming uncooked or improperly handled animal organs could lead to serious illness, food poisoning, or the transmission of diseases. A very real danger in a time before modern understanding of hygiene and palagy. The magical risks were even greater. The Church unequivocally condemned any form of magic that sought to manipulate another person's free will. Using a dove's heart to compel love was seen as a grave sin, a violation of divine order, and an act of sorcery. Could lead to accusations of witchcraft or demonic influence, especially if the target fell ill or behaved erratically, which could be attributed to the charm's malevolent power. Rather than its intended effect, the secrecy surrounding such practices was therefore paramount. A woman or man caught attempting to administer such a potion risked severe social ostracism, legal punishment, and spiritual damnation. The act itself was a desperate measure often taken by those who felt they had no other recourse in matters of love, or by those seeking control over another's affections. Specific historical examples of the success of such elixirs are predictably scarce, as these practices were clandestine and not openly documented. As triumphs, however, the prevalence of such recipes in magical texts, combined with the strong cultural symbolism of the dove, indicates that the belief in the potency of this elixir was widespread. The very existence of these recipes and the elaborate methods described for their preparation speak to the deep-seated yearning for control over matters of the heart. In a world where individual choice was often limited, the dove's heart, Elixir, stands as a testament to the blend of symbolism, desperation, and dangerous practice that characterized medieval love magic. It reminds us of a time when the boundary between the natural world and the supernatural was thin, and people looked to all corners, even the heart of a gentle bird, to find or secure love. Number 3, the wax effigy spell. Among the darker and more manipulative forms of love magic in the Middle Ages was the wax effigy spell. This practice involved creating a small figure, usually molded from beeswax, which was intended to represent the person one desired to influence. This effigy was not merely a doll. It was believed to be a living, breathing surrogate for the target, a vessel through which their will and emotions could be manipulated. While wax figures are often associated with curses and malevolent magic, their use in love spells was also a documented, albeit dangerous, practice. Core principle was sympathetic magic. Whatever was done to the effigy was believed to directly affect the corresponding person. For love magic, the intent was to soften the heart of the desired individual, to make them receptive to affection, or to ignite a burning passion for the practitioner. The figure was crafted with great care, often at a specific astrological hour or day deemed propitious for love, such as a Friday ruled by Venus. The wax itself might be purified or imbued with intent before molding. The creation of the effigy was a meticulous process. The figure would be shaped to resemble the target as closely as possible, sometimes even bearing facial features, to establish an even stronger magical link. Personal items from the desired person were often incorporated directly into the wax. This might include strands of hair nail clippings, a piece of fabric from their clothing, or even a few drops of their blood. These taglocks were believed to create an undeniable connection between the effigy and the individual, making the magic more potent and precise. Once the figure was made, various rituals would be performed upon it to achieve the desired romantic outcome. For instance, to draw someone closer, the effigy might be slowly moved towards the practitioner's home or bedchamber. To ignite passion, the figure might be slowly heated over a gentle flame, perhaps with accompanying incantations, to melt the target's resistance and burn them with desire for the practitioner. Another method involved pricking the effigy with pins, not to cause harm, but to pierce the target's heart with love or to stir their affections. Specific incantations, often rhyming and repetitive, would be spoken aloud during these manipulations, directing the magical energy towards the intended purpose. The effigy would then be hidden in a secret place, often near the practitioner's bed or buried in a specific location, to maintain the spell's continuous influence. Historically, wax effigies have a long and varied history in magic, appearing in ancient Egyptian, Roman, and Greek practices before making their way into medieval European magic. In the Middle Ages, their use was documented in various grimoires and texts, dealing with popular magic, though often within the context of warnings or condemnations. For example, the Malleus Maleficarum, a notorious guide for witch hunters, compiled in the late 15th century, described the use of effigies, but the underlying magical principle was understood to apply to all purposes, including love. These practices were shrouded in secrecy because they were considered highly dangerous and illicit. The risks associated with the wax effigy spell were profound, both magically and legally. From a medieval Christian perspective, the manipulation of an effigy to control another person's will was a direct affront to God and human free will. It was considered a form of black magic, often linked to demonic intervention, and thus a grave sin. If discovered, a person caught practicing such magic could face severe ecclesiastical penalties, including excommunication and civil punishments that ranged from fines to imprisonment, torture, or even death, particularly during times of heightened fear of sorcery. The act itself was seen as an attempt to usurp divine power and control another person's soul. Furthermore, the very nature of sympathetic magic meant that misapplied or misinterpreted intentions could lead to unintended and potentially harmful consequences. If the effigy was damaged or misused, or if the intent was not pure, the magic could backfire on the practitioner or cause unexpected suffering for the target. The secrecies surrounding the practice also created an atmosphere of fear and suspicion. Neighbors or authorities who discovered such an effigy might immediately assume the worst, even if the practitioner claimed a benign intent for love. While specific triumphant examples of wax effigies successfully charming someone into love are difficult to pinpoint in historical records, after all, few would openly admit to such illicit documents. Add in cases of suspected witchcraft. These cases, whether involving actual magical practice or merely suspicion, highlight the deep anxieties surrounding such powerful and manipulative magic in medieval society. The wax effigy spell remains a stark example of the desperate lengths to which individuals would go in pursuit of love, even if it meant risking their souls, their freedom, and their very lives in the shadow of forbidden arts. It illustrates a time when the boundaries of personal autonomy were seen as permeable to magical influence, and the desire for love could lead one down the most perilous of paths. Number 4. The love knot charm. Not all love magic in the Middle Ages involved gruesome ingredients or dark, shadowy rituals. Some charms were more subtle, more accessible, and perhaps even somewhat romantic in their execution. Among these, the love knot charm stood out as a widely practiced and enduring form of folk magic. This charm involved the intricate tying of knots, often with specific materials, and accompanying words to symbolically bind two hearts together in affection and fidelity. It was a tangible representation of a heartfelt desire, a physical manifestation of an emotional bond. The fundamental belief behind the love knot charm was a classic example of sympathetic magic. Just as the threads were physically bound together in a knot, so too would the lovers be bound together in affection. The act of tying the knot, layer by layer, strand by strand, was a meditative and intentional process, believed to weave the desires of the practitioner into the very fabric of the charm. The more intricate the knot, or the more personal the materials, the stronger the perceived bond. The materials chosen for a love knot were highly symbolic. Red ribbon was a popular choice representing passion, desire, and the lifeblood of love. Threads, often silk or linen, were also common, sometimes taken from the garments of the practitioner or even the desired beloved to create a direct link. In some instances, strands of hair from both individuals would be carefully interwoven into the knot, forming an even more intimate and powerful connection. The number of knots tied was also significant, with odd numbers like 3, 7, or 9 often preferred, as these numbers held mystical importance in medieval numerology. Each knot would be tied with a specific intention, perhaps whispering the name of the beloved or a short rhyme or incantation with each twist of the material. The creation of a love knot was often a private act performed in secret, but it was generally less condemned than other forms of magic because it often fell into the realm of folk superstition rather than overt sorcery or demonic pacts. Common practice involved tying the knot while focusing intently on the desired person, visualizing them returning one's affection. Once completed, the love knot would be kept in a special hidden place. It might be tucked under a pillow placed near a hearth, or carried close to the practitioner's heart as a personal amulet. Sometimes a love knot might be secretly placed in the intended beloved's possession, perhaps slipped into their clothing, or hidden in their home, to work its magic from proximity. In other cases, a love knot might be made and then given as a gift, though its magical intent would likely remain unspoken, shrouded in the guise of a sentimental token. Historically, the concept of binding with knots for various purposes, including love, has ancient roots appearing in diverse cultures worldwide. In the Middle Ages, love knots frequently appeared in popular culture, folklore, and romantic literature, often as a motif for undying love and fidelity. Medieval ballads and troubadour poetry sometimes refer to lovers exchanging tokens tied with intricate knots, symbolizing their unbreakable bond. While not explicitly detailed in official religious texts, the practice was likely widespread among the common folk. It was often seen as a relatively benign form of magic, a simple wish or prayer given physical form, rather than a malicious attempt to control or harm. The risks associated with the love knot charm were generally far less severe than those linked to potions or effigies. The church might frown upon it as a superstitious practice, diverting faith from God, but it rarely led to accusations of serious witchcraft, unless combined with other, more overtly illicit practices. The primary risk for the practitioner was often simply disappointment if the charm did not work. There was no real danger of poisoning or legal persecution unless the intent was clearly malicious or tied to other forbidden acts. It was typically understood as a mild form of enchantment, a way to encourage affection rather than to compel it against one's will. Despite its less dangerous nature, the love knot was still imbued with significant meaning and hope. It provided a tangible outlet for intense emotions, a ritual through which a person could express their deepest desires for love and connection in a time when romantic choices were often dictated by family Staticality. The love knot served as a silent plea, a symbol of longing, and a secret testament to the power of belief. Examples of love knots are often found woven into the fabric of medieval tales, where lovers exchange small tied tokens, or where a character performs such a ritual in hopes of winning affection. While these are often fictionalized, they reflect a real-world belief in the efficacy of such simple, symbolic acts. The love knot charm represents a gentler yet still powerful side. A miserable love magic, a testament to the enduring human desire to influence destiny in matters of the heart, using ingenuity and belief to weave threads of longing into a future of share of luck. It reminds us that even in an age of strict doctrine and dire warnings, people found ways to express their heart's desires through secret rituals and symbolic gestures. Number 5. The menstrual blood concoction. Among the various forms of love magic practiced in the Middle Ages, few were as potent as taboo, or as fraught with danger and moral condemnation, as the concoction involving menstrual blood. This was not a charm spoken in whispers or a gentle binding of knots. It was a desperate, often reviled act of compulsion, believed to create an unbreakable, almost unnatural bond between a woman and a man. The sheer power attributed to menstrual blood stemmed from its association with fertility life and the deep mysterious cycles of the female body. It was considered a profoundly powerful primal substance, and its use in magic was seen as an attempt to harness this raw force for the purpose of controlling another's affections. The belief underpinning the menstrual blood concoction was rooted in sympathetic magic and a primal understanding of bodily fluids. It was believed that by secretly introducing a woman's menstrual blood into a man's food or drink, the man would become irresistibly drawn to her. The blood, a part of her very essence and linked to the creation of life, was thought to bind him to her, as if he were part of her own being, creating a connection that was both physical and emotional. This was not about attracting gentle affection. It was about fostering an intense, often obsessive devotion, effectively bewitching the man into love. Preparation and administration of this potion were always carried out in the utmost secrecy, given the profound taboos surrounding it. The menstrual blood, fresh or sometimes dried and powdered, would be surreptitiously added to the man's unsuspecting meal or beverage. Wine, ale, and stews were common choices, as their strong flavors and textures could help disguise the presence of the blood. There are accounts in some historical texts and folklore of women mixing the blood with specific herbs, spices, or even other bodily fluids to enhance its perceived potency or to better conceal its presence. The act was a desperate gamble, often performed by women who felt powerless in their romantic desires or who wished to secure a marriage or affection that seemed otherwise out of reach. The intention was to bypass the man's free will, entirely compelling him through a potent hidden force. Historically, the use of menstrual blood in magic for both love and other purposes has a long and complex history across many cultures, dating back to ancient times. In the Middle Ages, while rarely openly discussed in polite society, its use was acknowledged in folklore, magical texts, and often in the condemnations issued by religious authorities. Medieval grimoire and texts on folk magic sometimes mention such recipes, often with warnings about their dangerous nature. The Church unequivocally and vehemently condemned the use of menstrual blood in any form of magic. It was considered a profoundly impure and demonic act, a perversion of natural processes and a clear sign of witchcraft. To use such a substance for coercion was viewed as a grave sin, a pact with dark forces, and a direct assault on the spiritual freedom of the individual. The risks associated with this concoction were immense. From a practical health perspective, the consumption of unhygienically handled bodily fluids could, and likely did, lead to serious illness, infections, and disease, especially in a time before modern medical understanding. Any illness or unusual behavior exhibited by the targeted man could be attributed by observers to the effects of the potion, leading to suspicion and accusations. From a legal and social standpoint, discovery of such a practice could lead to devastating consequences for the woman involved. She could be accused of witchcraft, sorcery, or poisoning, facing severe penalties, including public shaming, ostracization, excommunication, imprisonment, torture, or even death, particularly during periods of intense witch hunts. The very accusation, regardless of proof, was often enough to ruin a woman's life. The moral implications were equally dire. This form of magic was not about winning a heart through persuasion or charm. It was about forcing control, an act of magical violence against another person's autonomy. It violated the core Christian principle of free will and was seen as a profound corruption of love. The fear of being bewitched by such a powerful and insidious method was very real in medieval society. While specific historical examples of the successful use of a menstrual blood concoction for love are not openly documented as triumph, the very existence of such recipes in forbidden texts and the strong warnings in the medieval imagination and practice. Accusations of women bewitching men, sometimes with insinuations of such methods, do appear in medieval court records and in accounts of folk magic. These cases, whether true or merely born of suspicion and fear, highlight the deeply unsettling nature of this particular form of love magic. The menstrual blood concoction stands as a dark testament to the desperate lengths to which individuals, particularly women who often had little agency in matters of love and marriage, might go in a world where power over one's destiny seemed distant and the boundaries of accepted behavior blurred in the shadow of intense desire. It represents the ultimate forbidden attempt to secure love through a terrifying and dangerous act of secret compulsion.